I hadn't meant to overhear that night. But sometimes life forces you into truths you'd rather keep hidden. It was close to midnight when I got back from the store, carrying a plastic bag with a cheap bottle of wine and a couple of microwave dinners, the kind that say everything about a marriage running on fumes. As I stepped inside, her voice reached me, sharp and trembling with frustration. "I can't stand being with him, Sarah. I feel trapped. He's like a ghost. I can't get away." The words hit me so hard I forgot to breathe. I wasn't supposed to hear them, but once I did, there was no taking them back. Suddenly the pieces of our life fit together in the worst possible way. Marriage begins like a fairy tale, promises whispered in the dark, laughter that needs no reason, fire that feels endless. Then it settles into silence, repetitive habits, empty car rides, and noticing how they sleep with their back turned to you. I met Claire when we were both reckless and young, overflowing with plans just beyond our reach. Back then, her eyes lit up as if I was the only thing that mattered. I lived for that look. But little by little, it dimmed. She grew farther away. I became routine. I worked, I came home, I tried to be steady, and somehow it was never what she wanted. Standing in that dark hallway, hearing her confess she felt caged with me, it was like my chest was crushed in a vice. I could have walked in and confronted her, demanded an explanation, begged for honesty. But I didn't. Instead, I climbed the stairs, threw some clothes into a bag, and slipped out the door. No words, no note, no fight. She wanted space, and I gave it to her. I ended up at a shabby motel on the outskirts of town, paint peeling from the walls, a smell of mildew lingering in the air. Sitting on the uneven mattress, staring at the tacky wallpaper, I kept asking myself, how long had she felt like this? How long had I been nothing more than a shadow to her? The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls, texts, voicemails. Asterisk, where are you? We need to talk. Please come back. Asterisk, the irony made me almost laugh. The same woman who claimed she couldn't bear to be near me suddenly unraveled when I disappeared. I let her feel it, the emptiness, the absence of someone she'd always taken for granted. 2 days later, she tracked me down and stood at the door of that dingy motel room. She stood in the doorway when I opened it, looking like she'd been through hell. Her eyes were hollow, hair a mess, voice trembling. "Why did you leave?" she whispered. I let out a dry laugh. Asterisk, do you really need me to explain? Asterisk. She flinched, swallowing hard. You weren't supposed to hear that. And just like that, I understood. The problem wasn't what she'd said. It was that I'd caught her saying it. Something in me cracked then. I moved aside, and she stepped in, but she refused to sit. Was it true? I asked. Her silence lingered a fraction too long. That pause told me more than words ever could. Claire, who always had a quick reply, suddenly had none. She scrambled for something to keep me close, but I was already gone, long before I'd left the motel. Emotionally, I had checked out the moment her words reached me. I was upset, she said finally, voice uneven. Frustrated. I didn't mean it that way. I shook my head. You don't say things like that unless you mean them. Her eyes filled with tears. I love you, but... Don't. I cut her off. I don't need the asterisk but star. I already know how this ends. That broke her. She crumpled, sobbing, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. For 4 years I'd been the one aching, doubting if I was ever enough. Now it was her turn to sit with the emptiness of what she'd destroyed. I never went back. The divorce was bitter, but my healing wasn't. I learned something important in the process. Leaving isn't the hardest part. The hardest part is staying. Staying somewhere you're not wanted, in a love already turned to dust. Claire reached out a few times, trying to spark life into something long dead. But I had moved on. I'd found something she never gave me. Peace. And, in time, someone whose eyes made me feel like I was everything.